Hi guys, welcome and welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are well and I hope you guys are staying safe. First and foremost, I'd like to start by apologizing because I didn't get to put out a video last week. I apologize and I don't take you guys for granted. The reason why I didn't have a video out last week was because I lost my voice and there was no way I could have, the voiceover ready. So basically I had my video ready, but there was no voiceover to go along with it. And if you guys know how I do my thing, I record my video and then I edit and then do my voiceover and then finish off the editing. But then again, I'll make it up to you guys. So I have included pictures and clips from my friend's wedding when we're getting ready, and that's what you're watching right about now. I was her chief bridesmaid, so it was a busy week. So yes guys, today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make your own bridal robe, and if that's something that you would like to see, definitely keep watching. It promises to be another fun and detailed tutorial, and I'm sure by the time you're done you'll be able to make your own bridal robe. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. All you need to do is hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you don't miss out on the awesome content that I have for you. You also want to follow me on social media with the handles being shown on the screen. Thank you guys and enjoy the video. To make this bridal robe style, you need your pencil, but I'll be using a marker for the purpose of this video. You'll need your fabric scissors. You need an elastic band, and this one is just about a 1/2 inch elastic band. You need your safety pin, and this is so that you can pass the elastic band into the elastic casing. It's just easier to work with. You'll need your measuring tape, of course. You'll also need your pattern master, and you guys know that this is my absolute favorite tool. If you want to shop your pattern master, check out the links that I've got in the description bar of every single video. You'd also need your pattern, and if you don't know how to make your pattern, check out the video that I've linked in the iCards above as well as in the description bar below. It's a video on how to make a robe pattern. And lastly, you'll need your fabric. So I've got about 4 to 5 yards of satin fabric here, and it's in the color ivory or off-white, actually off-white, not ivory. So yes guys, that's all you're going to be needing for today's video. First things first, depending on the robe size you are working on, you want to determine the half length. And if you don't know what I mean by half length, that is the vertical measurement from the shoulder to the waist point. So then again, if you don't know what I mean, you can check out my video on how to take proper body measurements. I explained that in details. So basically, you want to find out the half length for the pursing. If you have someone that you're working with specifically, it's easier because you can actually measure the half length. However, if you're working with sizes like I'm doing, you would have to find an estimate that works for most sizes. So in this case, I've gone ahead to mark the half length, and as you can see, I did square out a line so that I can find the half length, and then I have my robe pattern. At this point, if you haven't already watched the video on how to draft the robe pattern, it might do you some good to go watch it, because then again you understand what I mean by make the pattern the front pattern or make it the back pattern. They're just tiny things that you do that will make the difference. So please go ahead and watch it so that you're not totally lost. But as you can see, I'm just folding in some parts and folding out some parts so that I can get the front and the back. So like I said, please watch it and then you will understand fully. The next thing we need to do is that we're going to cut out some fabric. We're going to cut out 3 yards of fabric or 3.5 yards of fabric, depending on how you want it to be. If you want it really full, I would suggest you cut out 3.5 yards, but if you don't want it as full, 3 yards will do just fine. After cutting out the 3.5 yards of fabric I wanted to cut out, here's what it looks like. The next thing to do will be to hem the sides of the fabric, and you basically want to do that by folding in 1/2 inch twice, and then you also want to hem the bottom of the fabric and then obviously hem the other side as well. So that means the only side that would not be hemmed will be the top, and that's because that's going to be gartered. After hemming the sides and the hem, this is what it looks like, and as you can see, I have all of it hemmed all the way, and the only part I left unhemmed will be the top, which I already said will be gathered. So the next thing for us to do will be to fold it into 2 so that we can find the center, and then when you find the center, you just want to notch the center a little bit. After notching the center, you want to go ahead and open up the fabric and then sew from one side to the other side on the right side. You want to sew on a 1/2 inch sewing allowance, making sure your sewing machine is on the loosest or the gathers setting. After sewing, here's what it should look like. The next thing to do is to pull the gathers, and you want to do that like pulling on the lower thread or on the thread that comes from the bobbin. You want to pull on that thread firmly, but you also want to pull on it gently so that it doesn't cut off. Alright guys, so after a couple of minutes, as you can see, I've only gathered one side. So I'm going to start off on the other side, and you basically just want to find the bobbin thread. As I said earlier, you want to gently but firmly pull on the bobbin thread while moving the fabric inwards towards the notched area. So you want to keep doing this until you've gathered the whole side, and then you'll basically be done in a couple of minutes. However, if you like a more detailed tutorial on how to pull your gathers, do check out the video that I've linked in the iCards above as well as in the description bar below. It's a video showing you how to make a gathered skirt. However, in that video I explain in details. I show you how the machine settings should be, and I think it will help you. So if you're struggling with this, go ahead and watch that video. Alright family, at this point I finally finished the gathers, and here's what it looks like. Moving on, we're going to start to sort out the front part or the bodice part of the robe, and to do that we're going to knit the bodice part of the pattern or the top part of the pattern. The next thing you want to do is you want to fold what's left of your fabric into two. You want to make sure that whatever you're doing it on the wrong side of the fabric. After folding the fabric into two, you should have a folded edge, which is where we're going to be using as the center back. Go ahead and pin the back piece of the pattern onto the center back. And like I said, to get the back piece of the pattern, all you need to do is fold in the flap at the bottom, just like I've done, and then just pin it in place. After pinning the pattern to the fabric, you want to go ahead and mark out the allowances. The allowances we'll be needing for this robe will be 1/2 inch around the neck area, 1/2 inch around the shoulder area, 1/2 inch around the armhole area, 1 inch around the side seam area. And the reason why I say 1 inch is because for this robe I'll be doing the French seam, because I have no power supply at the time. I had no power supply rather at the time of filming this video. And then of course 1/2 inch around the waist area. If you've got power supply and you've got an overlocking machine, you can do 1/2 inch around the side seam and then just go ahead and overlock it. After cutting out the back piece, here's what it looks like. Go ahead and take out the piece and then get ready to cut out the front piece. To cut out the front piece, you will need to make the pattern the front pattern now. So you fold out the flap at the bottom and then fold in the neckline around the slant. After doing that, you go ahead and pin it in place. After pinning the front piece in place, go ahead and mark out the sewing allowances, and the sewing allowances will be the same thing that you use. So you got 1/2 inch around the neckline, around the shoulder, around the armhole, and around the waist area. And then towards the side seam, you've got 1 inch, and I already explained that's because we're doing the French seam to finish off this robe. After marking out the allowances, go ahead and cut it out as shown. After cutting out the front piece, you can gently unpin the pins. However, you need to make sure that some pins are still holding the pieces together in place. This is because we'll need to cut out the front facing. To cut out the front facing, you want to make sure that your fabric or what's left of your fabric is straight, and then you want to go ahead and place the front piece on it. When you place the front piece on it, you want to make sure that about 4 inches of the shoulder is on the facing. So as you can see, I just checked out mine and it's fine. And then you want to go ahead and pin the front piece to the remaining fabric, and then use that as a template to cut out the facing. As you can see, the facing is not full. It only stops about halfway from the shoulder, and then just goes all the way down. So now that we have the facing, I've gone ahead to straighten the other edge of facing, and we are literally almost done with cutting out all our pieces. Next, you need to cut out 3 strips of fabric that are 1.5 inches wide and 20 inches long. These strips of fabric will be piped to make the belts that we will use to tie the robe inside, as well as the belt hole. So go ahead and cut out the fabric pieces. After cutting out the strips of fabric, here's what it looks like. So go ahead and pipe it in place, and all you want to do is just fold it as shown and sew it. After piping the strips, I went ahead to keep the length of 2 of them, and then the last one I cut out 2 pieces that are 4 inches in length. These ones will serve as the belt hole, and this is what they look like. So at this point, I've cut out all the strips that I need. I also went ahead to cut out a piece of bias strip, and if you don't know how to do this, check out the video that I've linked in the iCards above. You'll need the bias strip to finish off the neck for the back piece. After finishing off the neck for the back piece with the bias strip, here's what it looks like. The next thing for us to do is to sort out the facing. And to sort out the facing, as you can see, I don't totally unpin it. I just start by folding the edge or the straight edge by hemming it in place. And this makes it easy for me to do. So after hemming the straight edge in place for both pieces, here's what they look like. I can then unpin it now and then position my pieces as it should be. So I'm starting with the main pieces and I position them as it should be. And then I go ahead and place the facing on it so that the right sides are facing each other. So you want to place the corresponding facing on the corresponding front piece and then pin it in place and then sew on 1/2 inch sewing allowance as shown. After sewing each facing to each front piece, here's what it looks like. The next thing to do is to top stitch the facing in place. And to do that, you want to make sure that the allowance is towards the facing, and then you want to sew on the top all through. So you basically just want to sew from top to bottom as shown. After top stitching the facing, go ahead and place the front pieces on the table as it should be, and then you want to go ahead and place the back piece on it so that the right sides of the front piece and the right sides of the back piece are facing each other. Afterwards, we'll need to join the shoulders. To join the shoulders, I will need you guys to pay careful attention to this. So I'm going ahead to zoom in my camera. To join the shoulders, carefully place the back shoulder on the front one so that the right sides are facing each other. The back shoulder should start exactly where the front facing meets the front fabric. So basically you want the back neckline to start exactly at that point, and then you want to pin it in place from the neckline point to the end of the shoulder point. And then afterwards you want to go ahead and wrap the facing around it and pin it in place. Essentially it's like a sandwich. After pinning it in place, you want to sew on 1/2 inch sewing allowance as shown, and then take out all the pins, and it should look like this after sewing. As you can see, it looks really neat, and the facing or the neckline areas start at the same point. I'm going to show you guys again how I do that. So again, you want to place the back shoulder on the front shoulder exactly where the facing meets the main fabric, pin it in place and wrap the facing all around and pin the entire thing in place. Mark out the sewing allowance of 1/2 inch and then sew it in place. If you need to watch this in slow motion, go ahead and do that, and I'm sure you're going to understand it. After joining the shoulders, the next thing to do will be to join the sides, and essentially to do that you're going to place the right sides of both fabric facing each other and sew on the wrong side. However, in this case I told you guys that I'm going to be working with the French seam because I didn't have power supply at the time of shooting this video. So to do the French seam, you guys already know the drill if you've watched my previous video on how to make a tote bag. However, if you haven't watched that video, I'm going to explain it again. To sew the French seam, you want to place the fabric as it should be so that the wrong sides are facing each other. So as you can see, I have the right side of the front piece facing up and the right side of the back piece facing down, and then you want to go ahead and sew this together on a 1/4 inch sewing allowance. Here's what it looks like after sewing a 1/4 inch. The next thing to do is to flip it over to the wrong side and then pin it in place so that the seam is sharp. After doing that, you want to mark out the sewing allowance of 1/2 inch, and the reason why we're saying 1/2 inch is so that it encapsulates the previous stitch that we had. After sewing 1/2 inch, here's what it looks like, and as you can see, this is what it looks like on the right side. So it looks really neat and really nice. Go ahead and do this on the other side. Now on the other side, there's a major difference, and the major difference is that we're going to be adding one of the pipe strips that we had earlier. So to do that, you want to mark 1 inch from the waist upwards, and then you want to go ahead and pin one of the pipe strips on the inside or on the wrong side of any of the pieces. After doing that, we're going to go ahead and close it with the French seam as we know how to. And after doing this, this is the result. As you can see, the right side looks really nice, and then on the wrong side you have the strip coming out. To attach the second pipe strip, we'll need to take out some seams. So you want to go to the opposite end, that's the opposite end where the other strip is, and then you want to mark 1 inch from the waistline around the top stitch facing area. When you mark the point, you want to go ahead and take out the seams around there. So I advise that you take out about 1/2 inch above the 1 inch mark and then 1/2 inch below the 1 inch mark. So that way you have enough leeway to work with. Please note that at this point you need to take out the top stitching as well as the main seam. So basically, after you take it out, you obviously need to return both seams. You have to return the main seam as well as the top stitching. After taking out the seams, go ahead and insert the pipe strip in between it, and then you want to go ahead and sew it in place as it was before. After inserting and finishing up the second pipe strip, here's what it looks like, and as you can see, this just adds an extra layer of protection to your robe, because what happens is then you can then tie this on the inside to the other one and just have your robe a little bit secure. It's not compulsory, it's absolutely optional. However, I do encourage it. Next, we'll need to pin the belt hole in position. To pin the belt hole in position, you want to find the side seam area, and then you want to go ahead and pin the belt hole as shown. So as you can see, you just basically want to fold the belt hole in position and hold it in place with pins. You want to repeat this on the other side as well. And just as a reminder, the belt hole is the one that we cut that was 4 inches in length. So basically, after pinning the belt hole in position, here's what it should look like. You see, it looks really nice. If you want, you can go ahead and sew it in place. Otherwise, you can go ahead and find the center of the bodice piece by folding it into 2 equal parts. After finding the center of the bodice piece, we will now need to pin the skirt or the gathered piece onto it. You want to make sure that the right sides are touching each other, and starting from one side, you want to take the hemmed side of the body of the skirt piece and place it exactly at the point where the facing meets the main fabric on the bodice. So like I said, you don't start from where the bodice or where the facing is. You start from the exact point where the facing and the bodice are joined, and then you pin it in place on both sides. Afterwards, you'll need to find the center of the gathered piece, and if you remember, we made a notch earlier, and you want to pin that in place to the center of the bodice piece. Now, after pinning the sides and the center in place, the next thing to do is to spread the gathers. And the reason why I say spread the gathers is you need your gathers to be evenly distributed. You don't want it really bulky at some points and then very scanty at some points. So you want to go ahead and spread the gathers so that it's evenly distributed on the bodice, and then you want to go ahead and pin it in place when you're happy with the result. After spreading the gathers and pinning it in place, you can go ahead and sew the gathers to the bodice piece by sewing it on 1/2 inch sewing allowance, making sure that your machine stitches are now tighter. After sewing the bodice to the gathers piece, go ahead and flip over the facing just like we did when we were sorting out the shoulders, and then pin it in place. So you basically just want the facing to cover up the gathers part. So basically the gathers will be in between the facing and the main bodice piece, and then you want to go ahead and sew that in place as well on 1/2 inch sewing allowance. After sewing the facing in place, here's what it looks like, and at this point we're almost done. You can go ahead and turn it over to the right side, pushing out all the corners that needs to be pushed out. At this point, if you're happy with the result, you can go back to the wrong side and then overlock the seam where you have the bodice joining to the waist and to the skirt part. And basically what this does is that it keeps the fabric from fraying. I did that later to mine. So go ahead and do that if you want to, and then position your robe as it should be. As you can see, we have the belt hole in place and everything looks really nice. I've not given it an iron yet, but you'll need to give it an iron later on. The next thing to do is to measure the armhole so that we can cut out the sleeves. After measuring the armhole, go ahead and bring out what's left of the fabric and then start to draft the sleeve onto the fabric. If you don't know how to draft a sleeve, go ahead and watch the detailed video I have on how to draft a sleeve, and I'm sure it will help you. I'll put a link in the iCards above as well as in the description bar below. However, the kind of sleeves we're doing now is not fitted at the bottom, so basically you only need the first part on how to make the armhole curve, and that will help you so much. So to draft the sleeve, you want to mark the desired sleeve length, and this one is like a 3/4 sleeve length. So you want to mark out the desired sleeve length first of all, and you want to mark it all around and then rule a line, which is what I'm doing now. Afterwards, you want to also mark out horizontally the armhole length that you took earlier. So you want to mark out the armhole length you took earlier all the way from top to bottom horizontally. After doing that, you can connect it with a line if you want to, but as you can see, I have a rectangle now. The next thing to do will be to mark out 5 inches down. From the top, you want to mark 5 inches vertically. After marking the 5 inches vertically, you want to draw the S-shaped armhole curve, which is what I'm doing now. If you notice, I have a little bit of space around the armhole area at the top, and that's because I'm going to be adding some gathers to this one. So basically, if your armhole measurement that you took is 9 inches, feel free to use something like 11 inches because you'll need to add some gathers to give it that puff look that you have. After doing that, you want to go ahead and cut out the rest so that it's still the rectangle that you have. So we're not doing any shaping, we're not making it fitted, like I said, because it has an elastic band at the end. After cutting out the sleeves, go ahead and notch the center of the sleeve crown. You will notice that the sleeve crown on these sleeves are wider, and like I said, that's because I'm adding or introducing some gathers, so it was very intentional. Please take note of that. Moving on, the next thing you'll need to cut is you'll need to cut out the main belt. Now for the main belt, I have a standard length and a standard measurement that I use. The standard length I use will be a length of 70 inches, while the standard width that I use will be 4.5 inches. So typically a belt will measure 4.5 inches by 70 inches. However, if your fabric is not up to 70 inches, don't worry about it. You can cut out 2 pieces and then join it together if you need to. Now, if you're making a robe for someone who is a size 18 or size 20 or 22, you might need to make their belt a bit longer. So you can do like 80 inches by 4.5 inches. However, the width of 4.5 inches is a standard for me. As you can see, I have 2 different pieces for my belt. I'm going ahead to reduce the length, and then I'm going to go ahead and join the pieces together. So you want to place the right size on each other, and then you want to sew on 1/2 inch just to join it together. After joining it together, here's what it looks like. Go ahead and make the belt by folding it together. I like to start at the exact point where there's a joining, open up my seams, and then fold it together so that the right sides are facing each other. I like to pin it in place all the way from that joining to both ends, and then I go ahead and sew it in place on 1/2 inch as shown. While sewing, it's important to mention that you leave a gap of 2.5 to 3 inches unsewn so that you have enough room to turn the belt inside out. It's very important that you do this. So you want to go ahead and pin it as I've done, and then just go ahead and sew it as I've described. Like I said, you'll need to leave a gap unsewn so that you have enough room to turn your belt inside out. After sewing, here's what it looks like. So around the edges, I try to snip off any excess fabric that I have so that the corners are really sharp, and then I go ahead and turn it inside out using the gap that I left as an exit point. After turning it inside out, here's what the belt looks like, and as you can see, the corners are really sharp because I made sure to push them all out, and the belt needs a proper iron, so you want to go ahead and give it a good iron, and after ironing, you want to top stitch the gap close, and we are done with the belt. Moving on to the sleeve, which is the last bit, you want to go ahead and sew your sleeve in place, and because I used the French seam earlier, I'm going to finish up with the French seam. Now, after sewing the sleeve in place with the French seam, here's what it looks like. The next thing to do is to make the elastic casing, and by now you should know how to, but if you don't know how to, you basically just want to hem it, leaving a little bit of space so that you have enough room to pass the elastic in and pass it out. Next thing to do is to cut out the elastic that you require, and you can easily do that by measuring the bicep area. So like I said, this is 3/4 sleeve, so we'll be stopping about mid-arm. So you want to measure the area or the circumference area around that point, and then I would say take away 3 inches or 4 inches from whatever measurement that you have. So if you measure 10 inches, I would say take away 3 inches, and then you cut out elastic that is 7 inches. After cutting out the elastic to suit the measurement that you're taking, go ahead and attach the elastic onto your safety pin and then feed it into the elastic casing. You must remember to hold the other end of the elastic so that it doesn't totally disappear into the casing, and then you want to go ahead and keep pushing the elastic into the elastic casing till it comes out on the other end again. After feeding the elastic into the elastic casing and it's come out on the other end, go ahead and close the elastic by sewing it together, and then go ahead and top stitch the gap close. At this point, here's what the sleeve should look like. You want to repeat the process for the second sleeve, and if you don't know how to make the elastic casing, I'm showing you how. All you need to do is fold in by 1/2 inch and then fold it by 3/4 inch again, and that way you have yourself the elastic casing. So like I said, repeat the process for the other sleeve and you are now done. The next thing to do is to attach the sleeves onto the robe. To attach the sleeve to the armhole, you want to find the side seam of the sleeve and the side seam of the robe itself, and then you want to pin it in place starting at the side seam. Afterwards, you want to go ahead and pin the sleeve crown to the shoulder of the robe. If you don't know how to do this, again, like I said, watch the video on how to cut and sew sleeves and you should understand what I'm doing. Starting from the side seam, you want to go ahead and pin in both directions until you get close to the sleeve crown. Around the sleeve crown, you need to go ahead and make some pleats or gathers depending on whatever one you decide to. You should have some excess on the sleeves if you've done this correctly, and you will have enough to just do some pleats and some gathers. So as you can see, I'm now closer to the sleeve crown area and I'm forming my pleats in place, making sure that they're all facing the same direction. So you want to basically just, pin all around straight from the side seam, and you want to pin towards the sleeve crown, and then you want to make your pleats with the excess of the fabric left. You want to repeat this for the other side as well, and then when you're happy with the result, you want to go ahead and sew the sleeves to the armhole in place and then finish it up by overlocking. However, after pinning it in place, this is what it looks like. Alright guys, after sewing the sleeves in place, here's what it looks like. And as you can see, around the shoulders, we have some gathers right there and it looks really nice. So guys, at this point we are now done with the rope. I hope you enjoyed it, and as you can see, my friend Kitoye looks absolutely stunning in the robe. It was her wedding day and I'm saying congratulations to you again, my love. I absolutely love you. Thank you guys so much for watching this video to the very end. Thank you guys for sticking with me. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope it was worth your while. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to leave your comments, suggestions and feedback in the comment section below. If you guys would like to order a robe, I put a link to my Instagram page in the description bar below. Check it out and send your orders, guys. I deliver worldwide. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this family. Thank you for supporting me. I'll see you in my next video next week. Thank you and enjoy your day.